The simple life, it's a lifestyle that many people seem to be chasing these days, and you can't really blame them. The idea is pretty attractive, but what does a simple life actually look like? On the surface it does seem kinda obvious. You make your life as simple as possible. You get rid of any unnecessary work or unnecessary stresses until your life is stripped back to the bare basics. But there's got to be more to it than that. If not, then the people from the movie WALL-E are living the ideal simple life. And maybe I'm kind of misinterpreting things, but I don't think all the simple living YouTubers are trying to achieve this. I got thinking about this topic after watching a talk by a guy called Mr. Money Mustache. You might know him. He's an online blogger who advocates intense frugality to achieve early retirement. Now, in one part of his speech, which was kind of meant to be a joke, he detailed the step-by-step process that a rich person in the first world might take to achieve their simplest life. It ended like this. Now obviously that bit is meant to be just a bit of a goof, but like all good satire, it is pointing out a fundamental flaw in the thing it's talking about, and that is that most people who say they want the simple life just want a simpler life, and they definitely don't want the simplest life. All that confusing wordplay leaves space for a lot of grey area. You want to start simplifying your life? Well, how do you know when to stop? Allow me to use myself as an example. Now, I don't live in a tiny house or a cabin, and I am by no means retired, but I have worked pretty hard over the last few years to put myself in a position where I really don't have to work that often. I have a lot of free time, and what's the point of having free time if you don't have something to spend it on? Come into my shed and I'll explain more. As you can see, I'm kinda into prop making and cosplay and stuff like that. I get a little bit of money from this kind of stuff, from YouTube ads and people occasionally asking me to build them stuff, but mostly this is just a hobby. A hobby that I've poured many hours of work into. But is that right in terms of simple living? Does it make sense to work really hard in order to get enough free time to just work on something else? To answer that, you really have to think about what you mean by the word work, and what you mean by the word simple. Here's an example. In the front yard of my house, I was having a problem. To get to the mailbox, you had to walk through a bit of dirt, and if it had been raining, you could get really muddy feet. I solved the problem by building a little bridge out of pallet wood. Now, was that the simplest solution? Probably not. I could probably have just put some pavers or stones down to step on, maybe like 3 or 4, donk, donk, donk in a row. Wouldn't have taken long at all. That's simple, free, and wouldn't have taken any work really. If you decide to go with the bridge, I could have just bought a bridge. Definitely would have been simple to just go buy a bridge, but it's not free, and to get the money I would have had to go do an actual job to get money. So let's meet in the middle. I make my own bridge. Even then, there's a whole bunch of ways you can make it more or less simple. I could have bought the timber, could have taken an extra step and had the hardware store cut the timber to the exact size I needed instead of cutting it myself at home. I could have made some huge elaborate design that took a long time for me to put together. A lot of people tend to align simple living with the cheapest options available, but that isn't always true. If I had a hardware store right next door to me, but I had to walk many miles to get free pallet wood, well, which is the simpler option there? Even when you're talking about a task as simple as not getting dirty feet while getting your letters from your letterbox, there are hundreds of ways to make it more or less simple. One thing that I'm not really factoring into the equation though is fulfillment. See, I built that little bridge with my 2-year-old daughter. She really loves checking the letters, so mostly the bridge was for her anyway. We got a free pallet from a construction site a couple of blocks away, and we spent like a free morning we had cutting it up and nailing it together. To me, it was pretty simple. There were no plans. We just kind of went as we go. The wood was free, so it didn't matter if we screwed it up. But undoubtedly, I think it still would fall into the category of work. But may I direct you to something I said at the start of the video? You get rid of any unnecessary work or unnecessary stresses, unnecessary work. I think even living a simple life will involve a lot of work, and you will probably want to do a lot of work, but the key is that work necessary? Are you obligated to do it? Work can be a little funner when you know that you have no deadline. It's not necessary to do it right now. You don't have to do it at all if you halfway through decide not to. You can't make the simple life too simple. No one wants to have free time just so they can lay face down on the floor until they have to get up and go to work again. I hope. There's gonna be work involved in any kind of life. The key is it work that you're choosing to do at times that you want to, or is it the man? I'm gonna go shave my mustache off.